of them add up to a power that is not dependent. There is no dependence in the power of money in the way that there is in most other forms of power, even political and military power. Caesar only had his role because he was the adopted or sometimes biological son of a powerful man. It was relationship that gave him power. Even in our modern democracies, people get power through the consent of the governed. But if you have enough money, the honest truth is you can get whatever done you want without anyone really having to know or care or even validate who you are. Because money talks without you having to be a person. It's impersonal power. This is a power greater than any other in the world. And if you have it or had it or can imagine having it, why would you need God? Who needs God? When you can get what you want, whatever you want, when you want it, when you know how much you have, you can store it, and you don't have to be any particular kind of person to get what you want. Who would need God when you had money? So this is the first reason you can't serve it, because this is the most direct rival to God in human affairs. And the reason people come to you and the reason you and I live with anxieties about money, with hopes for money, is because of the kind of power we imagine it will give us. But there's also a deeper thing going on, and it gets to the word that Jesus used. Jesus was speaking Aramaic, the way he probably did his whole life. His biographers, the gospel writers, translate his words into Greek, and then we translate, in case of English speakers, into English so that we can understand. But every once in a while, the Gospels will leave an Aramaic word untranslated, and they do so in this case. They write down in Greek, you cannot serve God, and they just leave it untranslated. Mammon, it's a Semitic word that roughly means money or assets held in trust or that create trust. Why do they not translate this word? Well, what kinds of words do we not translate? The most common kind of word we don't translate are names. You don't translate a name from one language to another. You just transliterate that name. And that's what the gospel writers do here. And the early church concluded that the reason they did this is they understood something that Jesus was saying, which is that we're not talking about an ordinary noun here. We're not talking about even just a principle or an idea. We're talking about a quasi-personal, nameable power in human affairs that intends something, that has a will in the world, that is opposed to the will of God. And the ordinary way we talk about this, ordinary, extraordinary way, is we're talking about a demonic power. The early church concluded that Mammon was not just an idea or a principle, but the name of a being in service of the enemy of all that is good, the opponent of all of God's works in the world that we sometimes call Satan or the devil, that Mammon is this demonic force at work in history with a kind of quasi-personal ability to whisper and speak to human beings and to arrange and distort human affairs in a particular direction. And what is it that Mammon wants to get done in the world? It wants the opposite of what God wants. God has made this good, beautiful, abundant material world. He fills it with persons. He says, this world is already very good, but now I want you to fill the earth, multiply, and bring forth all the possibility and all the value out of the world. As the world is filled with persons, it will become full of the knowledge and love of God and the knowledge and love of one another, and in some ways, the knowledge and love of the world itself. Well, Mammon, being aligned with the demonic, being part of the demonic forces at work in history, hates all of these things. Of course it hates God. It wants us never to depend on God. Mammon hates creation itself, doesn't like the material world, wants an immaterial world that's purely spirit. And think about how money functions as it gets more advanced. It becomes less and less physical. We don't carry around gold anymore. We just account in our minds the imagination of how much we have. And Mammon hates persons. It wants you to operate impersonally. It actually wants to turn persons into things. In fact, when Mammon really gets its grip into a human society, as it had gotten its grip into the Roman Empire, as it got its grip into the capitalism that built our Western world, the result is treating persons like things. Treating persons impersonally. This is what slavery is. It's treating a person like property. It's treating a person like a thing. And while God wants the world to be filled with persons so that the whole world will be known and loved and God will be known and loved in everything, Mammon wants to empty the world of persons. Mammon wants everything to be impersonal so that there's no one and nothing, no one left, only things, and ultimately not even material things. Just an immaterial world that is devoted to pure power without dependence. You cannot serve a demon that wants to destroy persons, relationships, creation itself, and also serve the true God who wants to reunite persons, restore relationships, and liberate creation from its bondage to decay. You cannot serve God and Mammon.